Do you ever feel worthless? Well, if you do, you can try repeating this mantra in your head. I am not worthless. I am worth $200. If you reduce my body down to its base elements, you could sell them to an industrial chemical supplier for about $200. I am full of valuable potassium. No one can ever take that away from me unless I sell my body to an industrial chemical supplier. If somehow that doesn't make you feel better, you can always turn to the warmth and generosity of the US government, who officially values your life at $10,041,645. Well, unless you're not an American citizen, in which case they think you're worth less than dirt. Now, before we get into how the government arrived at this particular price tag, I should probably explain why the government needed a price tag in the first place. You see, many government agencies make big picture decisions that affect millions of people. Groups like the EPA, the CDC, the DOT, and whatever agency will be in charge of auctioning off Rhode Island when we hit the debt ceiling in 4 days. These decisions often boil down to an equation of lives saved versus financial cost. Big questions like, should we shut down the economy during a pandemic, or is it worth buying ad time for a puppet-based PSA about how rat poison is poisonous? Sometimes the answer is intuitive, but when the costs get higher and the life-saving potential gets lower, we're eventually forced to ask the difficult question, how do you weigh money against something as abstract as a human life? The good-hearted among you might say, you can't, or capitalism has rotted your brain, Sam, but hear me out. Let's say I took Brian from Real Engineering hostage, and I demanded that the US government pay me $6 trillion to release him. Well, according to my lawyer, this wouldn't work. The government can't spend their entire annual budget saving the life of some nerd who just makes videos about planes. So somewhere on the scale, there's a dollar limit where saving a life just isn't worth it anymore. But the question is, how do you find that limit? Well, of course, there's no objective answer. Legally speaking, our justice system considers every individual human life to be priceless. You can't exchange a person for money, and your car insurance doesn't cover vehicular manslaughter. So, to find the value of a human life, we needed to look for examples of large-scale situations where we already, unknowingly, assigned value to our own lives. Basically, a statistical value for human life, one that applies abstractly to large groups of people who can't look at you with big sad eyes and ask why they're worth less than 2 minutes of Super Bowl ad time. Naturally, the medical field was one of the first places where such a number was calculated. In the 70s, researchers tried to determine the amount of money that Medicare was willing to shell out, on average, to keep someone alive for a full year of healthy life, or one QALY. At the time, a QALY was estimated to be worth about $50,000, and today it's closer to $129,000. Of course, that model is pretty flawed because it's based on how much a human life is worth to the American healthcare system, and that's kind of like basing your model on how much a human life is worth to a guy who doesn't value human lives. That I don't know, our healthcare system is bad, guys. Anyways, around the same time, a former US Air Force pilot named Jack Carlson came up with another model based on military policies. Specifically, he studied Air Force procedures for what to do when your plane has been damaged, which situations call for ejection, and which called for attempting to land the plane. In other words, just how screwed did the plane have to be before you were allowed to save your own life? After looking at the costs of planes and the statistics of survival, Carlson calculated that the Air Force valued an entire human life at, drumroll please, $217,000. Now, this figure is pretty low because Nixon had tanked the human life market in the 70s, but what's important here is the idea. Carlson had figured out how much a life was implicitly worth by using decisions we had already made somewhere else. This later became known as the value of a statistical life, or VSL, but we didn't perfect it until about a decade later. In the 80s, OSHA was trying to figure out if it was worth telling people that dangerous acid was dangerous acid. The warning labels would cost some money, but they would stop a few people from thinking hydrochloric acid was a hot new energy drink. This, again, called for placing a value on human lives. Were the labels worth the money, or weren't they? With the help of economist Kip Viscusi, OSHA found a simple way to calculate a universal VSL by looking at the job market. You see, every single job pays a certain amount, but also comes with a certain risk of dying. Some jobs have nearly no risk of death, like accountant or librarian. Other jobs are quite a bit riskier, like coal miner or Half as Interesting writer, all of whom seem to die a horrible, horrible death after a video underperforms. Viscusi looked at tens of thousands of jobs from all walks of life and crunched the numbers on risk versus wage. At the time, he found that if you adjusted for nearly everything except deadliness, a job with 0.01% higher risk of death, on average, would be compensated by about a $300 higher wage. That means that the workforce was basically valuing their lives at $3 $3 million. This model caught on quickly and is still in use today. Adjusting for inflation, government agencies like the EPA commonly use $7.4 million in 2006 dollars, or about $10,041,645 in today dollars, as the statistical value of human life. Of course, we here at Half As Interesting value your life far above $10 million as long as you're a Nebula subscriber. Hey guys, so my lawyer, agent, and gardener told me I couldn't say that. They nixed a lot of my jokes, which is why I went behind their backs and compiled all of the jokes we cut for time, inappropriateness, or unfunniness into a companion video that I posted on Nebula and is linked in the description. Of course, access to these exclusive companion videos is just one of the things that makes Nebula worth it. In addition, you get access to all our regular videos early and ad-free, plus big budget Nebula originals, 2 of which we have in post-production right now. You get this not only for HAI, but for a huge catalog of smart-ish creators, and you'll actually be helping support our continued creation by giving us more predictable income than with ads. Of course, we still want you to be able to watch all our stuff easily, so we've partnered with CuriosityStream to make getting access to Nebula super easy. Now, when you sign up for any subscription at curiositystream.com/HAI, you'll also get access to Nebula. That means for less than $15 a year, you can watch all of Nebula and all of CuriosityStream, including Becoming Martian, about how humans will actually live on Mars. Altogether, this is the best deal in streaming, and it helps support the creators you love, so click the button on screen or head to curiositystream.com/HAI to sign up for the bundle deal today.